20 now, and she is a very beautiful young lady. Amy likes music of all varieties and has season tickets to the Denver Center for Performing Arts for their Broadway series, which she really enjoys. She loves water and swimming. She tolerates horseback riding and is pretty good on a horse, frankly, for the level of her disabilities. She's also a member of a pottery cooperative. We have some pottery pieces here in the house that Amy has worked on. Amy lives here in our home, and she has a couple of very dedicated caretakers. In fact, one of them has been with her since she was 18 months old and is an exceedingly happy person. Even in the morning, she wakes up and she's happy and she's singing and she's just ready to get going and start her day. So she has a very rich, full life and has a lot of people in her life who love and appreciate her.
We have 3 children who are all incredibly different and all incredibly special and fun and interesting in their own way. Our son is a year and a half older than the girls, and our twin daughters were a very rare type of twin. We have Meg, who's typical, and Amy, who has lots of challenges, even though they're genetically identical. That time period 20 years ago was a blur, honestly, with 3 small kids and 2 jobs, trying to keep everything together and learning about Amy and the challenges that she had and the resources. Children with special needs don't get an owner's manual when they're born, so we had to assemble that.
Like many parents, when you first find out your child has a disability, you're looking for answers and you're looking for help. Someone reached out to us and asked if we would be interested in participating in Project ENRICH. I probably would have driven anywhere for it, but it was particularly appealing because they came to your home. And having 3 small kids at the time, it was so much easier when therapy came to us. Tom and I are both doctors, and so our tendency would have been to medicalize it and to say, okay, it's therapy time, let's take her to a place for therapy. So one of the big lessons we learned from ENRICH was how to do things not only in my home, but sort of in the course of things I would be doing anyway. So I have memories of the therapist would come and show us how to stretch Amy in the living room, and then we would sit around on the floor and do things together. When ENRICH would come to the house, they'd include her siblings in the activities and whatever they were doing and try and find ways to integrate them into that, which was nice because we didn't have to find a place to put Meg, and it was more natural in that way. Project ENRICH showed me that you could stimulate your child and help them grow and develop just in the course of everyday things that you would be doing anyway, and I think that was important for us to learn at a young age. We had an advantage of her having a twin there who could sort of show her things that we might not have thought to show her, and so I think ENRICH really worked with us on, well, is this what you would do it anyway with Meg? Well, let's see how we can make that happen for Amy. And I think it sort of set the baseline for really what became our mantra, which was to try and fit Amy as much as we could into ordinary life.
Because it was in the house, it did have a built-in bias that that's where she belonged, and that despite lots of people telling me that that's not where she belonged. So it was empowering to us to be able to have people show us silly little things that made our lives gigantically easier and really more natural, and gave us a grounding for going forward and the confidence to say, you know what, physical therapy just isn't something that Amy digs, and what works a lot better for her is to combine it with something that she does really like swimming, so that it's a win for both of us.
And for her brother and sister who could then go to the pool as well.
We did activities and therapies as play and as an entire family. Not only did it demystify it, but it also made it incredibly efficient and not scary. Oh my gosh, she's going to need, all this extra time. I'm not going to be able to sort of do the things with the other kids or whatever. And I think that was one of the big fears, because we'd had a year and a half with a kid and we knew how chaotic it was, and thought, oh my God, how am I going to impose order and therapy and strict routines on this chaos? And the answer is you don't need to. You do a little bit of this, a little bit of that, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. You take this opportunity, you're giving them a bath. All right, stretch them a little bit. That's the part that really was reassuring. The fact that it was from the get-go going to be just sort of part of what you did and not medicalized, I think that's a great term, was mind-blowingly helpful because it sort of like, oh, I can do this. And not only that, we can do this naturally as part of what we do. You think of it as like, okay, well, how can I do that while I'm helping Meg with her homework? Or how can I do that while we're at Johnny's hockey game? Those are the kind of solutions that just make all the difference in the world to not only your lifestyle, but also your sense of, I'm a normal family and I'm just coping and doing things like any other family does. I just do some weird things.
Something that helped us sort of come back to a regular life was that we had these two other children to think about, and we couldn't sort of drop everything and just be focusing on doing therapy with Amy. We really had to try and make our home as much a home as possible and try and give the other kids an ordinary life as much as we could as well.
I think that many parents, as we did the first year, spent a lot of time reading about technical issues about how to lengthen our tendons and do this, when in fact, what you really need to do is try to figure out a way your family can function as it normally would have. Amy's a child and she has some specific medical needs, but first and foremost, she needs to be involved in whatever her brother and sister are involved in and whatever she would be involved in.
The therapists were enormously helpful, but it wasn't what they were doing to Amy or what they were taught in school. It was who they were. It was their experience of how other families had gone about facing these challenges and come up with creative solutions. And that just empowers you and gives you a lot of hope that you don't have early on because everything looks uncertain. They equip you with that attitude that says, it may not look like it's possible, but let's roll up our sleeves, let's figure this out. And set in motion that always, okay, we're gonna go on vacation, we're gonna do some hiking, we're gonna do some horseback riding. How are we gonna get it done? Not, oh, we can't do that, but what's it gonna look like? And that philosophy really sort of came from the people that we met early on who basically sort of said, yeah, you can do this. What's the big picture? What's the main goal? What's the prize you have to keep your eyes on? I distinctly remember our son and myself taking turns carrying Amy in her wheelchair down this incredible hike. Literally, there was a series of boards nailed into the wall of a very steep canyon, and I think most people would say, "You guys are nuts. Why would you want to do this?" And it's like, well, because we're a family and we do stuff together.
To have this important philosophy, what do you want to do? Let's see if we can make it happen. Ingrained in us at such a young age, it ended up becoming our default mode, is that we wanted to say, we don't want this to dominate our life and to take it over. We want to figure out how it fits into our life. So that Meg and Jonathan's wishes weren't always secondary. One of the traditions we built very early on that I think was very helpful for us was that we would each year take either Meg or Jonathan on a trip, one of us, and then we'd switch the next year because so much of your life can be taken up taking care of Amy. And so it was good that we got in this habit of saying, I'm going to focus on you for 4 or 5 days and we're going to go do a mother-daughter trip or a mother-son trip. And it was a really nice tradition we had because it is a whole family and your other children are also very important. And you have to be sure not to lose not only your children but also your marriage. We had a very strict tradition of date nights once a week. One person in the Project ENRICH had a child with special needs, and I think that sort of started us realizing how much you learn from other families that are going through this and the support that you get just from having somebody who's lived your life experience to help you with that.
We were extremely lucky early on to have lots of people who could mentor us, who'd been 10, 15, 20 years down the line, and who were just an enormous resource for emotional support, technical support, relationship building, and philosophic hand-holding on occasion. Gosh, we're really been beating our head against the wall, in this particular problem or whatever. Just to have somebody to commiserate with is huge.
When there are issues that arise and things that we need to figure out, other families, 9 times out of 10, have the information we need more than any bureaucrats or programs. And even as a state legislator, I still reach out to people living with disabilities to figure out how to help Amy get what she needs. One of the things I remember from very early on was that And I think people still say this, oh, it's such a gift that you have a child with a disability. And we had about a year of saying, you can take this gift, can I return this gift? And as we've matured and sort of figured it out, we realize what the gifts of having Amy in our life are. And now, 20 years later, wow. There are just so many ways in which our lives have been changed and enriched by having Amy be part of our life, in terms of having a clear sense of what's important in life, identifying injustice in any form, related to disability or not, feeling empowered to try and help people. Part of why I'm in the legislature is because of Amy. I obviously consider myself a big advocate in the legislature for families and people with disabilities.
No question, she's made me a much, much better and more empathetic physician because, I've lived it. And I talk about her a lot with families, because I can say, look, I know how you feel, and they look at me like, yeah, right. And I can say, no, I live with disability every day, and I get it. I understand, the sort of things that you're going through, and that's huge. And so, again, I think we see her effect on others as being, equally important as others' effect on her.
I think the biggest gift for us is that it's really given us great empathy for all sorts of people who are struggling with any kind of thing. When somebody passes me and is honking and, maybe making a gesture, what I'm thinking is, I wonder what's happening in their life that this is happening to them. It just makes you a much more thoughtful person, I think. And I think we've raised a couple of really great kids here who will continue this tradition and continue making a difference in our world.
There were times when I didn't feel lucky, and it definitely was a process, and now I feel incredibly lucky, and I can look back and compare my childhood to other people's childhoods and realize how much I learned from it and how much it matured me as a person, and all of the valuable skills that I've learned, and just how the way that I see the world is different from people who didn't grow up with a sister like Amy. I look at Amy and I never think she can't. I'm always like, yeah, she can. How are we going to make it happen? And the summer camp I worked at had that exact philosophy. The question was never, can this camper do the ropes course? The question was, how are we going to make it happen for this camper? And I think that general assumption of ability, we started from the assumption that this kid is going to do it, and then we worked to find the tools to make it happen. And I think that is not the view that most people have. They see a wheelchair and they think can't, and they see Down syndrome and they think can't, and it's like, why? Why not? There's no reason that it shouldn't happen. The reason that it doesn't happen is that you think can't, and it's your attitude that stops people from being able to do things. And so I think that's something that I learned from watching Amy defy people's expectations over and over and over.
I still read Welcome to Holland now and again because I really think that is the experience. You have a child and you thought it was going to be different than what it was, but instead you have a different experience, and it takes you a while before you look around and see what the beauty of that experience is and see what the impact of that has been on your life and on what kind of person you've turned out to be. You start out feeling really overwhelmed and thinking, wow, how are we going to make it through this? But if you avail yourself of the people who are out there ready, willing, and able to help you, and ask questions and keep moving forward, you'll come out a much better person at the end, and with a really incredible family.